else.
Yeah. And it's the synergy of it. And that's kind of what we talk about at the beginning of this podcast is, how two people helping each other become one equals a better than perfect relationship. So it equals more. It's, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, or it equals 4 in this case, because it's, and that really does exist, because just like you're saying with those puzzle pieces, if you, and it's funny because I was just having this discussion with someone else on another podcast, and he was saying that, as you basically become more aware and more enlightened, then you have the masculine and the feminine, you become more androgynous. And I didn't disagree with him, because I do believe that there's an aspect to the truth of that is, you learn as a man how to understand women, and then you can embody some of those things, and the woman can understand a man better. And I think that that's true. However, even when you become that, you choose to play the role. You choose to be the masculine, as the man perhaps, and the woman as the feminine. Yeah, and different other relationships can exist where you still have a masculine and feminine element. It doesn't have to be that way. That's just generally how it is. But you choose to play that role. And the reason why is because I was trying to think of a good analogy for this with your puzzle pieces, but it's like,
it simplifies your life, right? You're not having to do all the things.
Yeah.
But all the things are still happening.
Well, yeah, because it's like, if we were going on a trip, okay, let's say we're going on a hike, all right, we need a compass, and a map. We're going on a hike in 1940, okay? So we need a compass, we need a map, all right? We need some pots and pans and, some cookware.
Oh, we're camping?
Right, yeah, we're camping. It's a long hike, okay? So we need all these supplies. Right? And so there's two ways you could approach this. You could have your own set of supplies, everything that's necessary, and I can have my set of supplies, everything that's necessary, and we can carry a doubly heavy load, because you carry all the load that's necessary for you, and I carry all the load that's necessary.
My pots and pans and tent and compass and sleeping bag, and you carry your own.
Or we could say, you're going to have the pots and pans and whatever, and I'm going to have the tent and the sleeping bag or whatever it is, and we split it up, and you got the compass and I got and then you might say, well, shit, what happens if one of us gets lost and the other one's going to die too? Yeah, you're in it together, right? But your load will be less. That's the synergy, because now the 1 + 1 = 3 or 4. And that's what the whole oneness and coming together is, and having the masculine and the feminine in the relationship is, Can a woman do just about anything a man can do today? Absolutely. Women become CEOs of companies. I believe they can even become weightlifters and and compete with, in certain areas with men, maybe not as well in certain areas and vice versa. But practically, for all practical purposes, any woman can pretty much do what any man can do for practical purposes, right? I mean, there's some extreme outlying things, and the same for men. Can men do what women can do? Yeah. Can they take care of a baby? Can they do, of course they can do these things, right? But it's not necessary to have those skills in duplication. Mm-hmm. It's a waste. And if you say, I don't want to be dependent on someone else, then you probably shouldn't get married, because you should bind yourself together in such a way that if one of you's gone, the other one is screwed.
Right.
And again, you can, from like, if something happens and you die and stuff, you can have wills and financial, and then you have to operate independently at that. But until that day comes, you should be putting it all in, and taking it, not carrying your own pack. Yeah. If you're carrying your own pack, you're doubling the load.
Well, what I mentioned when we talked about it earlier, and I feel like I should mention it now, is that people need to lean on the fact that before they got married, they did it all on their own.
Right.
And instead of holding on to that in their marriage and for the rest of their life, when you get married, just take the knowledge that you had from that time of your life and knowing that you can do it, and hold on to that. But become one. Yeah. All you have when you get married is that you did it before. You did everything on your own. You could do it again, but you're not, because you don't have to.
Right.
So all you're really holding on to is the knowledge that you've done it before. You could do it again if you had to.
Yeah.
Not keeping separate bank accounts, not like actually living that way. Right. You're only holding on to the notion that you did it.
Right.
You know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what people can do without feeling like, oh, well, like I'm just giving up on my things. Well, like you said, you shouldn't get married if you feel like that. If you feel like you're just going into the oblivion, like you should know who you're marrying. But you don't have to live like doomsday preparing. Like I said, you don't have to live like you're single in your marriage just in case you become single again. Like you were single before.
Right.
You don't need to like do the actions to prove that you could do that again if God forbid that happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's true. Yeah. And if it came down to it, then you would figure out a way to survive. You know, it's like that's how it should. But you don't need to carry the double packs. I mean, if you end up, I guess maybe a good way to, that analogy is like you're hiking together. So you don't need to carry the double pack.
Right, exactly.
But if at some point you end up having to hike alone because your hiking partners...
You'll have the knowledge of when you hiked alone or when you had to,
and then
figure it out.
Then you can load up your own pack with everything that you need. And that's how it should be. But it's interesting too, because I had, a friend of mine was struggling with arranged marriage situation and asking for my advice on it. And it's kind of funny because, I mean, obviously I told him there were circumstances where it definitely didn't make sense for him to do an arranged marriage, especially with the pressure and everyone trying to get him. But it did make me think, and I was like, you should almost treat the marriage like a lot of arranged marriages actually do end up becoming successful because a lot of the culture is like, hey, you're together forever.
Yeah.
Like this is it.
Yeah,
like there's no do-overs. Like I hope you like each other because you're gonna, right? Like, and I was thinking like that mentality is actually a pretty healthy mentality. So it's like, I'm sort of on the fence on arranged marriages, to be honest with you, because I do believe that there's some merits to it in the sense that what's instilled in those people is like, look, it's not about being attracted or love, like, I mean, again, not that that's a bad thing either, but that's not the primary thing. The primary thing is, look, you are going to have a person and this person is going to depend on you and you're going to depend on this person and they're not going to be a perfect person. So the illusion that we get into when we fall in love and we marry someone based on that is that sometimes we think that they're a perfect person. Yeah. And then that illusion gets shattered. And so they're already starting off with that illusion shattered, that this is not a perfect person. But you're going to love this person and you're going to learn how to love them and be loved by them and accept them for exactly who they are, imperfect in everything. And the same goes for you. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing, right? And that's how we should be approaching. We should have an advantage.
Well, they're trying to do that with Love is Blind and Married at First Sight, but it's still not working the way they want it to.
We should have an advantage having actually seen each other and being in love.
Yeah, we got to actually pick the person.
And, if you can kind of combine those two things together, then you get what we're really talking about, which is this idea of a oneness that's an inseparable.
Yeah, I feel like people just shouldn't be afraid to be one with their spouse, like rely on each other, depend on each other, like enjoy each other. It's so stigmatized. And I was on the other side too. I'm like, would see happy couples and be like, I was a little bitter because I wanted to be in a happy relationship, but like, ew, they can't be like happy all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure people look at us and feel those things sometimes too. But now being in it, it's like, I couldn't imagine it any other way. And I've always felt like, though, marriage was very serious to me. Yeah. And that it was always going to be like an all-in, like we're one person sort of thing. But, a lot of people don't see marriage like that anymore. It's a lot easier, like we talked about, to get out of and, things like that. So I do feel like it's taken less seriously. But it should be taken seriously because I think if you do view it as you are merging with this person. Right. You are them and they are you. Right. Then it becomes a lot bigger of a deal and it's a lot more on the line. Yeah. And if you're still willing to make that commitment, then you really love and care and trust this person that you're about to spend the rest of your life. Better than